Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be turning this tablecloth that I got for $4 at a thrift store and this bed sheet for $2 into this. So if you want to see how I did it, keep on watching. I'm attending a lemon themed party, and though you don't have to dress in lemons, I love a good theme and was hoping to find something with lemons at a thrift store. So I was super excited when I found this outdoor tablecloth. I think because it's a circle shaped tablecloth, I automatically pictured making a circle skirt. And then I was hoping I would have enough leftover fabric to make a top as well. The fabric was a little see-through, so that's why I bought the bed sheet to use as lining. I panic ordered a pattern on Etsy. It said there was only 2 hours left to get the pattern half off, which was a great price. So I ordered it, but it didn't have any pockets or lining, which I wanted both. I did use the pattern for cutting out the pieces, but my fabric was already in the shape of a circle, so I don't feel like I personally needed the pattern for this project, but oh well. Also, every time I've gone back to this item on Etsy, it's always half off and there's always a countdown. But I will say $265 is a really great price for a pattern, and if you're wanting a basic circle skirt pattern for cheap, this one works. I couldn't find a video or tutorial for the exact thing I was making, a circle skirt with a waistband, with pockets, with a side zipper next to the pocket, not a back zipper, and with lining. And I had never added lining before. It's been about a decade since I've sewn a zipper, and I've definitely never added a zipper next to a pocket. So this took lots of research, reading different blogs, watching multiple videos, and combining all of the information to put together my own process and order of things. So hopefully this video is helpful for anyone else wanting to do the same thing. So the first thing I did was iron my fabric and then cut the pattern. The front and back of the skirt, the waistband, and the pockets. Since my pattern didn't come with pockets, I used these spare pockets I had from another project. But keep watching because I learned there was an adjustment needed for these to go with a circle skirt. For the lining, using the same pattern, I cut the front and back piece of the skirt the exact same size, except for the bottom of the skirt should be an inch or two shorter. I figured it would be easier to finish the edges at this point before I started sewing things together, so I used an overcast stitch along the sides of the front and back skirt pieces. Now with the actual sewing. The first thing I did was add the right pocket. I'm going to pause the video here. So first I'm going to point out that little F over here. Because the front and back piece are the same, for the sake of keeping everything clear to me, I took a piece of tape and with permanent marker wrote F for the front side and stuck that to the piece of fabric I was going to use as the front, and then did the same thing with the letter B for the back side, so I could keep the pieces labeled as I worked on this project. So I have the front skirt piece on top of the back piece right here, and they are right sides together, and then I have the front pocket pinned to the front skirt piece, right side to right side, and then the back pocket piece pinned to the back skirt piece, right side to right side. The top of the pocket pieces line up with the top of the skirt. I also pulled out a recent sewing project just to help me visualize what the pockets look like from the inside. So then with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I sewed just along the length of the pocket. The seam allowance for this part just needs to be shorter than whatever seam allowance you're using for the rest of your skirt. So now that the individual pocket sides are attached to their corresponding side of the skirt, we're going to attach the front side of the skirt and front pocket to the back side of the skirt and back pocket. So as before, I have the front piece of the skirt on top, the back piece on the bottom, right sides together, and I have the pocket pulled out to the side. You can see where I have them pinned. And where it's pinned is where I'm going to sew. So just about an inch at the top here, then starting at this corner of the pocket, I'll sew all around here, around the curve of the pocket, and then I'll stop. And then I'll pick back up here and sew down to the bottom of the skirt. The part that I'm not sewing right here is the pocket hole. And all of this I now sewed with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. After I did this, I went ahead and did my overcast stitch around the pocket to finish the edges there. Next step is to clip the seam allowance under the pocket. Just be careful to not cut the seam you just finished sewing. But you can see here I clipped the seam allowance so the pocket can lay flat the other way. You want the pocket to be turned towards the front of the skirt. This bottom seam allowance here, below the pocket, I will press that open. Now at this point, I'm realizing that the top of this pocket should actually line up with the top of the skirt. So I went ahead and cut these little pieces to sew to the top of the pocket. It doesn't really need to be pretty. This will all be inside of the skirt and not visible anywhere. But to attach the pocket correctly, I really needed the pocket to be lined up with the top of the skirt. So here's what my old pocket looks like next to my new pocket. And you can see how this will line up a little better. These unattached pocket pieces are for the side that we haven't attached yet. But then I went ahead and added these pieces to my current pockets as well. Then, the reason I needed the pocket to match in the first place, I went ahead and did a base stitch at the very top here, attaching the pocket to only the front piece of the skirt. Make sure you're not including the back piece of your skirt in this. So now we're going to start attaching the left side pocket to the other side. But because that's the side with the zipper, this side will be a little different. So shown here, this is the front side of the skirt on the right here. This is the back side of the skirt on the left. And then this seam here in the middle is the right pocket that we just finished sewing. So I'm going to take the front piece of the skirt here and attach the left front pocket right side to right side. I sewed this just like the other side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance just along the length of the pocket. Okay, front pocket is now attached. Now I'm going to take the back pocket piece, right sides together, and sew along the outside just like we did on the other pocket. So from this top corner all around the curve. Once I did that, I finished the pocket edges with my overcast stitch and then basted the top of the pocket to the front piece of the skirt. Next was getting ready to attach the lining. So first I had to sew the front piece of the lining to the back piece of the lining. I placed my lining pieces right side to right side and sewed it together, but only on one side. And once I did that, I finished the edge. Now I laid my skirt out and laid the lining on top of that. This is wrong sides together. I pinned along the top here, and then I basted the lining to the skirt. I left about 1 inch to 1.5 inches open on each end, as you can see here. Now this could have been done at any point up until now, but now I'm adding interface to the waistband. Once the interface is attached, I press the band lengthwise right down the middle. And then on only one side, I folded the seam allowance and then pressed that as well. Okay, this actually came from the pattern instructions, so here's one more way I actually used my pattern. Then I pinned the non-pressed side of the band to the actual skirt and sewed to attach those together. At this point, I wrapped the skirt around me and realized it was going to be too big. I knew this would be my last chance to easily alter the skirt size before I had the zipper attached and everything. So I measured how much I thought I would need to remove, accounting for the fact of the seam allowance when I sewed the sides together, and I ended up cutting off about 2 inches. I left the waistband just a little bit longer because I'll need that space when I fold it over later. So now in preparation of adding the zipper, first, mark where your zipper will end. Then I need to sew the front piece of the skirt to the back piece. But we have to work with and around our pocket. So this here is the back pocket piece, again, which is already attached to the front pocket piece. And we're going to be sewing the back pocket piece to the back skirt piece, making sure to not sew the pocket closed. So therefore, you need to make sure the front pocket piece is moved out of the way. This sounds confusing, so keep watching to see this in full. So I'm pinning the front to the back. Now when it comes to sewing this, you're actually just baste stitching from the top here to where your zipper mark is. So basting where your zipper will be. Below where your zipper will be, you can switch back to a normal stitch. I made sure to back stitch at that point when I transitioned to the regular stitch. Also, you want to make sure the lining is pushed out of the way. The lining will not be sewn yet. You can see I keep stopping and putting my hand underneath here because I keep feeling to make sure the pocket piece is moved out of the way. This is something that's hard to show here on camera, but when you're doing it, you'll be able to see what I mean. So this is where I'm at. Down here is sewn together, up here is basted, and again, you can see the lining is pushed out of the way. Now I'm pressing the seams open. Now to attach the zipper. If you're someone that does zippers all the time, this will be a breeze for you. This was my first time doing a zipper in over 10 years, so it was a little rocky for me. You just want to make sure the top of the zipper, like where it actually stops, not the zipper band, which is longer, the top of the actual zipper should go to the middle of your band where you have it pressed. You'll see this a little bit better once I show the zipper completed. But I'm pinning my zipper here to the seam allowance that is pressed open. I'm getting ready to sew this, but again, as a reminder, you want to make sure you're pushing the pocket front out of the way. I've got my zipper foot in and I'm stitching as close as I can to the actual zipper. Now where I have my zipper ending, it's not the bottom of the pocket piece, but it's at the bottom of where the pocket ends. Remember on our first pocket how we sewed a couple inches at the bottom of the pocket? That's where I'm having mine end. So once I get to the bottom, I turn my garment and then sew back and forth a few times to create a new ending to my zipper, going forward and then back stitching. Then I turn the garment again to attach the zipper on the other side. This is what that looks like from the outside. So again, you can see here why it's important to move that pocket out of the way. Then I clipped the excess zipper off. Next is to sew up the bottom of that pocket. So this will be both pocket pieces, front and back, and the seam allowance piece that is on the same side as the pocket. So I do make a mistake here that I want to point out so you can be sure to prevent yourself from making that same mistake. You can see on this side where I have it pinned, but look at the pins on the back side. That's where I sewed, and then this is what happened. See, these seams should have been matching. On the back side, this is what it looks like. I sewed here, but on this side of the pocket, the seam is here, when it should have actually been a continuation of the seam line above. So I seam ripped and redid that. Now I'm removing the base stitching to reveal my zipper. Then I also removed the basting from the top of the skirt from when I basted the lining to the outer skirt. When I sewed the waistband to the skirt, this is when it was actually sewn together for real, so I no longer need the basting. Then I went ahead and graded the top here to get rid of some of the bulkiness in the waistband. Now it's time to bring the other side of the waistband down to cover all of these seams. So when I put the zipper in, I accidentally put it up, I think, too high. I think it should have just been like a tad bit lower. So now when putting the waistband back over to attach it to this side, it's kind of like too short here. Like you can see here, it should be covering this stitch. So the rest is great, but here it's just like a little too short. Because there are already stitches here from putting in the zipper, I think I'm gonna start by putting a stitch on either side to try to close some of this down. I just need to make sure this is secure, and then I'll flip it. I'll stitch in the ditch all the way around, and then when I'm done with that, I'll be able to turn it over, and whatever was not caught by stitching in the ditch, I'll go ahead and hand sew it. Also forgot to point out that before pinning this, because the lining is still not closed off on this side yet where the zipper is, but that's the next thing I'll be doing, is folding this over and connecting it. So when I pinned this up here though, I did have to already take this lining and roll it under so it could be attached to the waistband and, you know, caught here. So I did roll that, so that's prepared. I went ahead and stitched in the ditch all the way around, and then on the inside, I hand sewed anything that was missed. Now to finish up the lining. I marked below where the zipper ends and then sewed from that point to the bottom of the skirt. I did this from the inside, and then I finished the edges and pressed the seams out. Now next is to slip stitch the lining to the zipper band. That's really the proper way of doing this, but it had taken me so long to do the spots on the waistband that I just really did not want to hand sew again. I knew using the machine would create additional seam lines on the outside of the skirt, and also I had to be careful because the pocket is on the other side and I didn't want to sew that shut, but I was determined to make this work with the machine. Okay, so this is what that looks like. This is the side that has the pocket, so I couldn't really machine sew up there because the pocket, I can't push it away behind there. I could go ahead and hand stitch just that little part. I might do that. This part, I think from what I've seen, you kind of just leave. Maybe I can slip stitch that too, but I don't really care. And then I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. So from a distance, maybe you can't tell. The good thing is, see, the one side is going to be hidden by the pocket anyways, but then it's this side where there's two seams now that aren't straight or together. The ones when I attach the zipper, the other one is what I just did right now. Whatever. If you don't want the stitches to show, you should have hand stitched this, but I'm okay with this decision. Okay, the very last thing I need to do is hem the bottom. I went ahead and cleaned up all that fraying, and then I did a rolled hem. So here I am pressing and pinning. I'm pretty sure this just took like an hour and a half. To press the seam up one direction and then roll it and press it again around the whole circle. And that's just this layer. I still need to do that to the lining. Pressing seams is literally my least favorite part of sewing. I went ahead and sewed that, and yes, it did take an additional hour and a half to roll and press the hem of the lining as well. I think it kept taking so long to press though because I'm afraid of burning my fabric. I'm a little scarred from a recent project. I just ironed a hole. What? How, Sway? Next was the top, and you can see here I was kind of trying to play with different options. I only had a little bit of fabric left, so I knew it would need to be pieced together. But since I really didn't know what I was doing and I didn't have a pattern, I just didn't feel like figuring it out. And I had already tried thrifting for a top with no luck, so I ended up getting a bunch of white tops from Target to take home and try, and I got one yellow top. All of the white ones were just too bright white compared to the white in my skirt, so I returned all of those and kept the yellow one. And then I could have left it at that, but I really wanted to see if I could come up with a way to incorporate the lemon fabric into the top. Plus, because of the way this top is shaped, I was really having trouble finding the right bra. My strapless looked dumb, but with a regular bra, the straps showed. So I thought maybe I could try and add something to hide the straps. When you're standing in a dark bathroom in blue shorts and no makeup and terrible lighting, do I not like the shirt or do I not like myself? So I came up with these little ruffles. Luckily, this was the outer edge of the tablecloth, so I used that so I could take advantage of the fact that the edge was already done on that side. Then I stitched 2 lines of base stitches so I could gather this together and create the ruffles. I knew once I attached these to the tank top, it would be hard to find a way to finish the edges or cover the edges, and I was trying to minimize the amount of stitches I did because I didn't want the front of the tank top to have a bunch of stitching showing. So I made my own bias tape. which I've literally never used bias tape ever in my life, so shout out to me for figuring that out. But then I had these complete ruffles that just needed to be attached. I was a little nervous about attaching non-stretch ruffles to a stretch tank top. I ended up using a straight stretch stitch, and to the best of my ability, I tried stitching in the seam that already existed. And so, a reminder of the before. And here is the final result. How do you feel about the top? I'm kind of conflicted. I've gotten used to it more in person, but not sure how I feel on camera. Either way, I love how the skirt turned out, and I truly can't believe I figured out how to do all of that. But that is it. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if you have any questions. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you next time.